Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to view our content that we've created here at Project Access. The topic of the presentation for this recording is prompting. So, a little bit about myself. So, my name is Blaine Stimple. I'm one of the instructors for this course. So, I'll kind of tell you a little bit about my background. So, I grew up in Northwest Arkansas, and I had a lot of different majors in my undergrad, from communication sciences to pre-OT to special education, and then finally decided on psychology and graduated with a bachelor's of psychology. And during that time, I worked as a registered behavior technician in a multidisciplinary outpatient clinic serving children with autism. And that's kind of where I found my passion for the field of applied behavior analysis. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of service providers in the state of Arkansas. So I decided to leave the state to go get my master's of education with an emphasis in applied behavior analysis at the University of Washington in Seattle, with a goal to really gain as diverse experiences as I could to one day come back to my hometown. So up there, I worked in a variety of different settings, working in school settings, outpatient settings, working in the homes. I worked at Seattle Children's Hospital, working in some integrated healthcare teams. And I've now been in the field of applied behavior analysis for about 9 years. I've been a BCBA for a little over 5 years, and I'm now a current clinical psychology doctoral student here at Missouri State University.
And then we have myself. My name is Michaela Campbell. I have been in the field of ABA for 5 years now and have been a BCBA for 1 year. The other 4 years, I was a registered behavior technician. I have experience working in homes, in the clinic setting, and experience working in the school settings. I have an immense gratitude for teachers and everyone that work in schools. And I have a master's of education with an emphasis in ABA as well. And then I also am a current clinical psychology student at Missouri State University.
So the course objectives for this training today is to understand the concepts of stimulus, stimulus class, stimulus control, and discriminative stimulus, define prompting, response prompts, and stimulus prompts, identify the different types of prompts, understand the strategies to fade stimulus control and promote independence, and lastly, to identify the relevance of this information to your profession. So we're going to start by kind of going back to the basics. Also, if this is unfamiliar to you, that's totally okay. So first, we're going to start with antecedent behavior consequence. You might have heard of them as the ABCs of behavior. So in applied behavior analysis, we define behavior quite broadly to include anything an individual does when interacting with the physical environment. And we have our jargon warning down here at the bottom of the screen to just call out that, in a field of applied behavior analysis, it has its own jargon. So the word behavior, with your learning history might mean something different. For example, for me, before getting into the field of applied behavior analysis, behavior kind of had this negative meaning where it was associated with things that were problematic. But in applied behavior analysis, again, just means really anything an individual does when interacting within our environment. And then we have the behavioral stream. And this is kind of a metaphor that we use in ABA to think about how behavior is always, there's this constant interaction that somebody has with their environment. And we can think about it as this ever flowing stream. So I'd like for you to take 5 minutes for a brief activity here to reflect on what your behavioral stream looks like getting ready for the day. So focus on what those interactions are between you and your environment, and try to include 3 events that occurred in your behavioral stream, and make sure to reflect on what happened. So what did you do? Why did you do what you did? And what was the outcome of that behavior? Again, focusing on those interactions between you and your physical environment in the context of getting ready for your day. Okay, so here are a few examples that I came up with. The first one is about a morning routine. So this morning, my alarm goes off and wakes me up. I then decide to hit snooze and go back to sleep. Then, because of that, I wasn't able to prep my breakfast before leaving for school because I slept in. Here are a couple other examples not related to morning routine. Let's say you walk into your living room and it's a mess. Instead of cleaning, you sit on the couch and watch your favorite show. Later, you can't find your phone charger because the living room is so messy. Again, looking at the interactions between behavior, a person's behavior and their environment, and the outcomes of those interactions. And then the last example is perhaps you're in the kitchen and your dog barks. You decide to go outside and play with your dog. And from that, you get lots of snuggles with your dog and some fresh air. So, why this matters. So, again, ABC's antecedent behavior consequence and our behavioral stream. So, we're going to kind of use that to think about how we can break down, all these thousands upon thousands of interactions that somebody has with their physical environment. These ABCs allow us to chunk that stream into these single units to where we can kind of look at what kind of learning is occurring in these small units of kind of interaction between a person and an environment. So ABCs allow us to analyze a single wave of somebody's behavioral stream. So some examples of what an ABC might be in the natural environment. So perhaps A is a teacher gives an instruction for group work. Following that, students work with their group. And after that, a teacher praises the group for their teamwork. So again, we have this linear thing happening in the environment where teacher gives instruction for group work, student works with group, teacher then praises the group for their teamwork. So we can look at this happening in the behavioral stream and then chunk it into our ABCs to allow us to look at this specific interaction that's occurring. Another example for ABC is a kid sees a friend at a party. They say hi to that friend, and then a friend responds and they start playing tag together. So again, looking at a person's interaction within their environment, looking at that broader behavioral stream, and then these ABCs allow us to look at a very specific part of that stream, a single wave, as we called it. Another example is perhaps you see a new recipe on Instagram. You then go cook the new recipe, and the dinner is amazing, and all your friends love it. So now what I would like for you to do is take a couple of minutes here to come up with your own ABC diagram for a behavior in your own life. It can be anything. Okay, so extending on our ABCs and our behavioral stream concept that we've discussed so far is in applied behavior analysis, we recognize that all behavior occurs within an environmental context. So that is that behavior cannot be emitted in an environmental void or vacuum, right? We're always a part of our physical environment. And here is just a visual representing the environment, which is, the environment is the world around us. It is the place where our behavior occurs. So like the weather in the Midwest, the environment is constantly changing, right? In a single day or two, it might go from sunny to raining to having snow on the ground. So take a couple minutes here to think about how your behavior changes in response to a change in your environment. Come up with a couple examples. One example here is that's shown here below is how when the weather changes from sunny to rainy, it impacts your behavior by you then grabbing an umbrella to shield yourself from the rain if you're outside, for example. Or it might another example in the same environmental change might be that you grab a raincoat and put up your hood. So another example here of looking at how changes in the environment can influence behavior. You have a group of kids who are sitting here in class, perhaps attending to a lecture. The bell then rings. Following the bell ringing, kids stand up, get up from their desk, and go line up at the door, perhaps to go to another class or an activity. So let's review some things that we've discussed so far. So the first question is, what are the ABCs of behavior? We have after, before, currently, antecedent behavior currently, antecedent behavior consequence, and antecedent between consequence. So the answer for the review question is C, antecedent behavior consequence. These are ABCs of behavior. So the next jargon warning we have here, again, there's a lot of jargon in the field of applied behavior analysis. So I'll try to make sure that that is always down there at the bottom when we're introducing new words that have specific meaning to the field of ABA. So for this slide, we're going to talk about stimulus. So a stimulus is any energy change that affects an organism through its receptor cells. And we're going to break that down. So stimulus changes, these are something that you experience through vision, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. So take a couple minutes here for a brief activity to record as many stimuli as you can from the following picture on the next slide. So here's that picture. Again, take a couple minutes here to record as many stimuli as you can from this picture in 2 minutes. Okay, so some things that I came up with for this scene that you also took a couple minutes to record stimuli for are you might hear birds chirping, the smell of a food truck, the sound of a dog barking. Maybe you're hearing the honking of a car. You could hear or see kids playing, hear a person talking on their phone, see people talking on the bench. I also see that the stoplight has changed. So again, we can come up with a lot of different stimuli that are present in just this one snapshot of an environment. So another review question here. So stimuli include which of the following? A dog barking, an alarm going off, a fly buzzing, or D, all of the above. So the answer for this one is D, all of the above, right? We can hear a dog barking. We can hear an alarm going off. Uh, we can also hear a fly buzzing. So these are all things that we can sense in our physical environment through hearing. So another brief activity. There's going to be a lot of practice embedded throughout this prompting talk today because I think it's really important that as you're getting exposed to new words and new concepts that you have a lot of practice to try to make these practical and make sense. So 2 minute activity here where again we've just talked about what stimuli occur outside of the skin. So now I'd like for you to take a couple of minutes to make a list of stimuli that occur within the skin. So we perceive stimuli that occur both within and outside the skin. So the last activity, we were looking at that screenshot of an environment, and we talked about a lot of things that we would see in our environment, but not necessarily things that occur within our skin. So some examples, if you look at these pictures below, might be things like feeling a headache, feeling a stomach ache, maybe just simply thinking, something that occurs within the skin, or also feeling sick if you have a cold. Okay, now we're going to extend on our concept of a stimulus. So we've talked a little bit about what a stimulus is, the fact that it can occur within and outside the skin. Now we're going to have another jargon warning here about a stimulus is that a single stimulus can have multiple functions. So we'll take a stimulus, a peace sign, right? Or for this, we'll just simply call it what it looks like. So somebody holding their two fingers up. And this can have multiple functions. So this could mean 2 hot dogs, please. Right? Perhaps you're in an aisle at a baseball game and holding up 2 signals to the person coming by selling hot dogs that you would like 2 hot dogs, please. It could also function as peace out. Perhaps you're leaving a group of friends and you throw up this sign to indicate peace out. That's that's the function you're trying to communicate. And then last, the function could be a catcher sign to a pitcher. Perhaps these 2 fingers represent a specific type of pitch that the catcher would like the pitcher to throw for this next upcoming pitch. So again, just demonstrating here that a single stimulus, this can have multiple meanings in the environment. So another example of how a single stimulus can have multiple functions. So we'll take the stimulus of I have a testimony, right? It's a thought. I have a testimony, something that we perceive within the skin. And it can have multiple functions, right? We could get a thought like that and perhaps we start to study. We could also do the opposite and we could avoid studying. Uh, Another potential change or another behavior we might do is ruminate about the fact that we have a test upcoming tomorrow. So again, a single stimulus, something that we can perceive within the skin and within the skin that can have multiple functions. So another activity for this one, we'll take a stimulus, a bell ringing, and take a couple minutes here to think about what functions a bell ringing could have. Okay, so let's talk about our example here. So the activities for a bell ringing, that was our stimulus, right? And then the directive was to come up with three different functions that a bell ringing might have on the environment. So the three that I came up with, perhaps it is signaling school is out, right? Time to go home. Perhaps a bell is ringing and it could be that the bride is about to walk down the aisle. And last, it might indicate that it's time for lunch. And the bell ringing is a change in schedule, and that change in schedule is that it's time for lunch. So again, really here is, it's important to call out that there is no perfect or right answer necessarily, right? Like a bell ringing could have many more functions than just three. So if you came up with something different, that's totally okay and likely a good thing. Okay, so we talked about how what a stimulus is. It occurs within and outside the skin. A stimulus can have multiple functions. Now we're going to bring another term into the mix here. So we got our jargon warning back, and that is for the term stimulus class. So this is a word in applied behavior analysis that means any group of stimuli that share specified common elements along formal, temporal, and or functional dimensions. And we're going to go over some examples of what that looks like. So function, formal, temporal, right? A group of stimuli that share specified common elements among one of these three categories. So function is perhaps they share their effects on behavior. It could be formal, so we're thinking about their physical features, or it could be temporal. So how this, like thinking about how the stimuli occur, like when they occur with respect to a behavior of interest. And again, we're going to give some more examples here. So here's an example for a stimulus class that is based on function. So we have three stimuli here. We have a stop sign, a red light, and a policeman who is holding up their hand, right? All three of these share the same function in the environment, which is to convey the need to stop. So again, here, just looking at those three stimuli, tell us that it's time to stop. So another 2-minute activity here, where I'd like for you to make a functional stimulus class that includes at least three stimuli. The next type of stimulus class is a formal stimulus class. And so again, thinking about physical characteristics. So we have an apple, a barn, and a wheelbarrow here. So let's think about how these three things are related. So again, we look at these three items and we can tell that they're all red, right? So this is a formal stimulus class where these three stimuli all share in common that they're all red. Now, something that's important to note is that you can have three stimuli, and if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, I came up with a different way that they're all related, that's okay. Stimuli can be related in multiple ways. It's not that these three stimuli can only be identified as a formal stimulus class. They could be a part of multiple stimulus class. It doesn't have to just be a formal one. So if you came up with something else, that's great. So another example of a formal stimulus clause here, if you take a look, we have three different animals here. We have a puppy, a bear, and a hamster. And if we think about how are these all related, we can look at them and say that, well, they're all furry animals. So it's a physical characteristic of each stimuli that is all shared, something they all three have in common. And that means that they are a part of a stimulus class with a formal dimension. Okay, so a 2-minute activity here to make a formal stimulus class that includes at least three stimuli. And our last type of stimulus class that we're going to talk about is temporal. So we can look down and see that we have a sun that is about to set. We have a family that is having dinner, and then it looks like we have a book about fairy tales. Let's think about how these three might be related, specifically with that temporal dimension. So these are all things that signal bedtime. So again, with temporal, we're thinking about when these stimuli occur and how they are related with that time component. So these three stimuli, although very different, all can be a part of the same stimulus class, which is that they are signals of bedtime. So the last activity for stimulus class is to take 2 minutes here, make a temporal stimulus class that includes at least three stimuli. Okay, so we have actually another activity here about stimulus classes. So again, really focusing on practicing these various concepts that we're learning throughout this video recording. So for this activity, take 7 minutes to create as many stimulus classes as you can. That includes at least three stimuli in each group with the following objects. So here are some examples of some different stimulus classes that I came up with. So there's some a functional one. So we have things you can wear with our gloves, our dress, and our sandals. Another functional stimulus class are things that you might need at school. So scissors, pencil, a stapler, a laptop. A stimulus class that is a formal stimulus class. So things that are all pink. And then last, again, we have that temporal one of a bedtime. So we have pajamas, we have a clock that has a specific time on it that's close to bedtime, books, and then our bed. Okay, so a review question here. Which is an example of a formal stimulus class? So we have a leaf, grass, a frog, all green, a green light, go, someone gesturing you to go, all mean to go, sunrise, morning coffee, rooster crowing, all signaling waking up, or D, all of the above. Again, which is an example of a formal stimulus class? So the answer was A, leaf, grass, and frog. They are formal because they share physical characteristics. They are all green. So to talk a little bit more about how stimuli affect behavior. So talked a little bit about the beginning about antecedent, behavior, consequence. These are our ABCs of behavior. We didn't really go into the definitions of each, but in applied behavior analysis, an antecedent refers to environmental conditions or stimulus changes that exist or occur prior to a behavior that we are interested in. So before we can identify an antecedent, we first have to identify a behavior that we are interested in that then we could look for environmental conditions or stimulus changes that happened prior to the occurrence of that behavior of interest. So antecedent stimuli, they have a fundamental role in environments, and they help us know how to and how not to respond in a given context. For example, the behavior of interest that we might have is a type of pitch throw. And if that is what we are concerned with, then if we want to look for the antecedent, in this example, the antecedent stimulus would be the type of sign given by the catcher. So uh, in this example, you have a pitcher is about to throw a baseball. Prior to throwing a specific type of pitch, he's going to check in, look at his catcher, and look for a specific sign given to indicate to him what type of pitch is being thrown. So again, our behavior of interest is type of pitch thrown. The antecedent stimulus that would occur prior to that behavior would be a specific sign given by the catcher. Another example would be perhaps the behavior of interest is to stop, slow down, or go. So these are driving behaviors. With those different behaviors, we can look prior to the behavior of interest. So if we're thinking about somebody approaching a stoplight, who's either going to stop, slow down, or go, the antecedent stimulus that we would want to look at that would happen prior to that behavior will be the color of light, right? Somebody starts to approach a stoplight. If it's green, they're going to keep going. If it's yellow, hopefully they begin to slow down. If it's red, same thing. Hopefully they begin to slow down and stop at the stoplight. So again, thinking about that behavioral stream, it's ever changing. It's these dynamic interactions that a person has with their physical environment, which again is always changing, and we can look at that and chunk it into our ABCs, identify a behavior of interest, and then look for what types of antecedents are influencing those behaviors that we are interested in. Okay, another example here is the behavior that we're interested in is a student raising their hand or shouting out. So we might have multiple behaviors that we're interested in here in the classroom. And the stimulus that might be occurring prior to those behaviors would be teacher asking a question. So a good example would be for a student raising their hand, we could go back what occurred right before that behavior that we're interested in, and then perhaps it was a teacher asking a question. But it's not necessarily have to be the only stimulus, right? We could probably think of other ones as to why a student might raise their hand, right? Perhaps the stimulus is a teacher asking a question to the class. Perhaps the teacher is just lecturing. Maybe it's been a long time since there's been a bathroom break, right? So the kid could be raising his hand to also indicate to the teacher that they need a bathroom break. Okay, 2-minute activity here. Come up with 2 examples of a stimulus behavior relationship. One example should be from your own life, and the other should be from your classroom. Also, for these activities, if it takes more than the time that is mentioned, that's totally okay. These are just rough estimates. So if it takes more than a couple minutes to come up with your examples, that's totally okay. Okay, so stimuli indicate what behaviors will be reinforced in a given context. So again, we're kind of extending our concept of stimuli and how they're used in the field of ABA. So let's look at some examples of this. So back to our jargon warning. Again, we're racking these up, but the field has a lot of jargon. So discriminative stimulus, also referred to as an SD, might be something that you've heard. What that means in applied behavior analysis is that it's a stimulus that in the presence of which a given behavior has been reinforced, and in the absence of which that behavior has not been reinforced. So an SD evokes operant behavior because its presence signals the availability of reinforcement. That's a lot to unpack, so we're going to break it down. And here we go. Let's break down the jargon. So we have an example where we have a child who is motivated to receive money. And they have their 2 parents here. And they walk up to their parents. Both are present. And they ask for money. Right? They say money. We have one parent that says, sure thing. Here you go. We have another parent that says, no, so sorry, no money. 10 years later, same family. We have a child motivated to access money. Both parents are present. Walk into the room. Money. One parent Dad, sure thing. Mom, no sorry, no money. 15 years later, same family, same situation. Starting to kind of get the point, I'm sure, here. Child's motivated for money, asks for money. One parent says, sure thing. The other parent says, no, so sorry. 30 years later, uh, same situation. Child's looking for money. Money, please. Dad says, sure thing. Mom says, no, so sorry. It's kind of a dramatic example, but this is trying to just uh, kind of help explain how stimuli become discriminative stimulus. So you need money for a movie night. Okay, put yourself in the child's place. Who are you likely to ask for money? Probably the dad, right? After that learning history, which you got to be a part of, where we had a kid across time asking uh, her parents for money, with one parent continuously providing uh, money to that request and one parent denying that request. So, based on that learning history, put back in this example, we can see that if we need money, we know exactly who we're asking for. And that's only because we have this learning history, or we know what those repeated transactions were between yourself, right, this girl, this child, with her parents, right? What were those little ABCs that happened in her behavioral stream? And then in the future, we can go, okay, from that, who am I most likely to ask money for based on that history? And this is our Mr. Discriminative stimulus. So, through all that learning history, his presence comes to signal the availability of reinforcement for the response of asking for money, right? Previously, he was a neutral stimulus relative to that request for asking for money. And over time, the more and more a person has those interactions with the environment, right? I am under this motivational state of needing money. I'm going to mom or dad asking for money. Dad is the one who continuously reinforces that request. And over time, right, through learning history, his presence now signals the availability of uh, receiving reinforcement for the response of asking for money. So, some examples of SDs that could occur in school. So, one context, we have a lot of kids who are out here at the playground and they're all playing, and it's recess, and this kid takes off running and he says, chase me, right? In this context, that request to chase me is likely to be reinforced, right? So recess is being outside, being with my friends, running around, is part of a discriminative stimulus that indicates that asking to be chased will be reinforced by being chased, right? Context two is the classroom. So let's take the same group of kids. We have a kid who takes off running um, while the teacher is doing some group work here. Kid takes off running and says, chase me. In this context, we don't have a discriminative stimulus, right? We hope at least that these kids are likely to say no, and the kid is not chased. So we have an example of an SD in the school here where recess, running and asking to be chased, hopefully is reinforced by being chased, and then context two is not group work, totally different stimulus environment conditions here, where a kid maybe repeats the exact same behavior, but it's not reinforced. So over time, they learn like which context it's appropriate to ask for chase. Okay, so here are some another example of SDs that occur in the school. So in context one here, we have um, a discriminative stimulus. So we have a stimulus that is the bathroom pass. So perhaps it is hanging on the board when the bathroom pass is visible. It indicates that if you raise your hand and ask to go to the bathroom, that it'll get reinforced and honored by allowing you to go to the bathroom. Context two would be that you have this different environment where you have the you don't have the presence of a bathroom pass visible. So if you raise your hand, ask for the bathroom, it would not be reinforced at this time. Perhaps it's during a brief quiz or something. So children in this environment, in this same classroom, have two different stimulus conditions, two different environments that they're in. One in which the stimulus of a bathroom pass is visible, and one in where it is not. And that bathroom pass over time learns or gains this kind of meaning where if it's visible, the behavior of asking to go to the bathroom will be reinforced. When it is not, right, it's not presentable, then asking to go to the bathroom will not be reinforced. It's an example of a discriminative stimulus, the bathroom pass, a stimulus that signals the availability of reinforce for a specific response, which is asking you to go to the bathroom. Okay, so here's a 5-minute activity. So come up with 3 scenarios incorporating SDs, discriminative stimulus, kind of what we just talked about here. Give one scenario from your personal life, one scenario as a student, and or one scenario as a teacher, and one from a student. See the following slide for an example of how to do this. So just an example of what that activity looks like. So perhaps we have table talk, sign is up, students talk to their table mates, and they get reinforcement from their peers. Table talk sign is not up, students talk to table mates, peers don't respond. So in this example, we have, again, kind of like our bathroom pass. Teacher, goes to maybe it's a circle table of 5 kids sitting at it. There's some kind of sign that means you can have table talk right now. It's okay. When that sign's there, students talk to their table mates and they get reinforcement from their peers by other peers talking to them. Other condition, same kids sitting at a table at a group. The table talk sign though is not up, and a student then tries to talk to their table mates and peers don't respond. Hopefully, over time, right, the student eventually learns to change their behavior based on the presence of a table talk sign. So that's where that table talk sign is then a discriminative stimulus, right? It's a stimulus that signals the availability of reinforcement, peers talking to you, for a specific response, student talking to their peers. So again, going back to that activity, take some time to come up with some examples like this on your own. Okay, so continue to extend on our concept here. So we talked a lot about a stimulus, what it is, how we view it in applied behavior analysis. So now that we know stimuli affects behavior, what do we do if a stimuli isn't resulting in the behavior that we are targeting? Prompting. This gets us to, you might be like, wow, we're, a long ways into this, and we haven't even talked about the word prompting. That's because there's a lot of concepts that in applied behavior analysis we got to talk about and understand before we can do prompting in a systematic way. So, jargon warning here because, again, prompting is a word that is familiar, right? But in applied behavior analysis, it means something very specific. So, in ABA, prompts are supplementary antecedent stimuli used to occasion a correct response in the presence of the natural SD, discriminative stimulus, that will eventually control the behavior. So again, like any of these jargon warnings, we're going to break this down. So prompting occasions a correct response, really, right? So we have a desired stimulus, and then we have a behavior that we're interested in, but it's not occurring. Prompting is something that we're going to put in the middle there to occasion a correct response, to try to occasion that behavior that we do want to see more of. With prompting, we have 2 components that we're concerned about. We have prompt, right? What we've been talking about. This is our supplementary antecedent stimuli. And then we have prompt fading, which is just simply the removal of that supplementary antecedent stimuli. So when we're thinking about an example, right, we're trying to teach some kind of target skill, right? Like maybe it's, opening a door, right? So we ask somebody to open a door, target behavior opening the door isn't happening. So we insert that supplementary antecedent stimuli, right? We put it in between that initial instruction and the behavior that's desired, and we add some type of prompt to occasion that response of being able to open the door. That's our prompt. But we want to get to the point where we can once that response is starting to happen with prompts, now we got to start thinking about prompt fading. We got to think about how we're going to remove that supplementary antecedent stimuli, those prompts, so that we can hit our goal, which is that that natural stimulus evokes a target response, right? We're working towards independence. So great that we were able to utilize some prompts to increase behavior that we're concerned about. But then at the same time, we want to find a way to get those prompts back out of there so that it's just that natural stimulus that's evoking that target response. So again, antecedent behavior consequence. It's that unit of analysis that allows us to break up that constantly changing behavioral string. So we have our ABC. Prompting, like I was mentioning, goes between the antecedent and the behavior. Something that we put right in the middle of it to get that behavior to occur following the desired antecedent. So an example, perhaps we have a teacher who says it's time to line up to the class, and the behavior that we're interested in, right, would be that students stand up, line up with the class, right? Simple. Perhaps we have a student or students that are not doing that. And prompting is something that we use as a technique to insert in there to figure out what kind of supplementary antecedent stimuli do we need to put in to help the student or students line up with the class following the initial direction of the teacher says it's time to line up. The consequence in this example is that perhaps there's praise from the teacher and the class gets the transition to their next activity, which can be something like PE. All right, let's look at another example here. So we have a teacher that says time to line up. A student stays seated on the rug. Right, so that is not the behavior we are interested in happening. Right, we are interested in the behavior of student lining up with the class. So prompting will be something that we would then insert to like following the directive to line up, something we would do after that to then occasion that response on the bottom, which is the student lining up with the class. So I'll review question here. So what should prompting occasion? Should it occasion a correct response, an incorrect response, or any type of response? The answer is A. So prompting should always occasion a correct response. Right? That's our goal, is that our prompting technique, whatever we are doing, we want it to occasion the response that we are interested in. So we're looking for a correct response. So a little bit longer activity here before we really start diving into some of the prompting stuff is to read a couple chapters here of a book that is about systematic instruction for students with moderate and severe disabilities in preparation for the following content and activities. And even if you are somebody who doesn't necessarily work with that population, this information is really just written well and is helpful for gaining a basic understanding of the content that we're about to go further in depth about. So with prompting, we have two types. So we have response prompts and stimulus prompts. Those are our two categories of prompting techniques. Okay, now you can watch a short video here that talks about those two different categories, response and stimulus prompts.